The Galactic Council's central chamber shimmered under ambient starlight, refracting through a dome of hexaglass. Representatives of 42 sentient species hovered, slithered, or sat within their respective platforms, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of pride and arrogance. The conversation had turned, as it often did, toward the humans. "They're graceless," rasped Overseer Krell of the Selniks, her segmented mandibles clicking in contempt. "Primitive bipeds. Still rely on chemical propulsion for most of their weaponry." "Projectile slingers," hissed a Quaritch delegate, his tendrils twitching. "They still use bullets. Physical ammunition. Can you imagine the inefficiency?" Laughter rippled across the chamber, in various frequencies and tones. Someone even played a recorded clip. A human soldier tripping over a root during training, followed by another wrestling with a jammed rifle. It was grainy footage, but it served its purpose. The chamber erupted in derision. At the rear of the chamber, silent and motionless, sat Admiral Jewel Keen of the Quaritch Dominion. Unlike his peers, he did not laugh. His yellow compound eyes flicked to the center dais, where Earth's envoy, a gray-haired man named Captain Elias Monroe, stood unwavering amidst the mockery. Monroe waited for silence, though it never truly arrived. "You misjudge us," he said calmly, his accent clipped and deliberate. "Humans aren't graceful. We're not genetically modified for perfection. But clumsy doesn't mean incapable." Krell snorted. "What are you capable of?" "Falling in interesting ways." Monroe didn't blink. "Winning wars you've already lost." Quietly, more laughter. Someone barked. "Then perhaps you'll enjoy showing us. The Skarn Dominion is devouring colonies in the Vorin Belt. Show us how your snipers trip their way to victory." Jewel Keen's deep voice cut through the haze. "Enough." The laughter died down. "The Skarn have overrun 3 council strongholds in the last 6 cycles. Their cloaking fields are destabilizing planetary defenses. We've lost 2 fleets and 7,000 ground troops. Perhaps a different approach is needed." Krell's voice dripped with sarcasm. "You propose we deploy humans? One of their bullet men?" Jewel Keen turned his gaze toward Monroe. "I propose we observe one." Monroe inclined his head slightly. "Permission to deploy 1 sniper team. No support, just observation. You'll know if we're worth the invitation." No one approved, but no one stopped it either. 2 days later, deep within the stealth frigate Wintergale, Cryo Unit Number 07 hissed as the frost receded. A figure slowly sat up, muscles taut and frame lean, every motion precise despite the years in stasis. Pale blue eyes blinked once, then focused. "Sergeant Orion Kale," said the onboard AI. "Earth Recon Unit. Authorization received. Deployment window begins in 3 hours." Kale didn't respond. He stood and began dressing, layer by layer. His black armor fitted snug, bearing no insignia. It had no need for recognition. On the observation moon of Varela 3, Council forces were entrenched and desperate. Skarn raiding parties had landed with near impunity, moving under shield domes that scrambled targeting sensors. Command posts were losing connection faster than replacements arrived. General Jewel Keen watched from a reinforced bunker, studying the holographic map. "This is a losing pattern." An aide approached. "The human has arrived." Kale stood before them, silent, visor retracted. The council officers eyed him like one might regard a museum relic. He said nothing. Jewel Keen stepped forward. "You've seen our tactical layout?" Kale nodded. "We can't track them once they enter the ridge shadows. Thermal scans fail. Drones drop offline." Kale looked at the map. "Ridge line is broken. Echo valleys. Wind changes every 80 meters. Your sensors are blind because they rely on what they see." Jewel Keen narrowed his gaze. "And you?" Kale picked up a small council-issued targeting module and switched it off. "I listen." The humans had always believed in minimalism when it came to combat. Where others built towering exosuits and plasma mortars, they trained patience. Breathing, gravity, wind curvature, the art of stillness. An hour later, Kale lay prone beneath a rock shelf, his rifle a matte black shadow in his hands. He did not move for 57 minutes, not when insects crawled over him. Not when Skarn scouts passed within meters of his location. He waited. Then, a slight glint. A Skarn officer, armored in command plating, giving orders beneath a camo shield. Kale's breath slowed. A heartbeat later, the rifle kicked, softly. No sound, no trace. The Skarn's head snapped back, and the body crumpled. The council feed showed chaos. Skarn ranks scattering, shouting in their own guttural language. Another shot, then a third. Officers fell like dominoes. Back at the bunker, Juro Keen watched as the enemy formation unraveled without warning. Kale's voice crackled over comms for the first time. Officers first. Structure next. Panic follows. Krell, watching from a secondary channel, muttered, "This is luck. One engagement." Juro Keen disagreed. "This is art." By nightfall, the Skarn had pulled back. Not because they were overrun, because they feared what they could not see. Rumors among their ranks had begun. Of an invisible death, of a ghost on the rocks. Kale didn't return to base. He stayed in the field. Juro Keen sent no orders. He didn't need to. The human wasn't clumsy. He was aiming. The moonscape of Arella 3 was a jagged expanse of violet dust and basalt ridges, its sky veiled by perpetual storm clouds laced with static. In the hollow silence of the twilight zone, Ori and Kale lay motionless beneath a makeshift ghillie net. Hours passed, marked only by his steady breath and the soft clicks of his analog scope adjusting to minuscule shifts in light. He didn't twitch. He didn't speak. He waited. Inside the forward command shelter, General Juro Keen reviewed thermal satellite feeds that displayed nothing but interference and atmospheric smearing. A half-dozen council species barked in frustration around him, each blaming the other for tactical failures. The Skarn had pushed through 2 more ridgelines overnight, and local sensors were now blind to movements beyond 20 meters. Every automated defense had been sabotaged or bypassed. "The jamming field fluctuates in cycles," said the Vol-3 technician, her 6-finger hands flickering over the interface. "But our drones can't compensate fast enough. They're baiting us," Juro Keen said, taking commanders in sequence, destabilizing command structure. "And your Earth sniper?" asked Krell coldly from the holoscreen above. "Still hiding behind rocks?" Juro Keen gestured to the display. "He's not hiding. He's choosing." A Skarn patrol crept through a ravine south of Echo Point. 7 soldiers in stagger formation, unaware they were being watched. Kale tracked them through his scope without blinking, each target marked, each breath measured. Wind, steady, 6 kilometers per hour east. Gravity, 92 centimos. Distance, 812 meters. He exhaled. 1 shot. The lead Skarn fell. A neat hole bored through his ocular lens. The others froze. No sound. No muzzle flash. Just a sudden, surgical subtraction of their commander. They broke formation. Kale fired twice more, shifting barely a hair between shots. 2 more Skarn collapsed. The last 4 scattered, one stumbling over his own weapon. Kale watched, but did not shoot again. The message had already been delivered. Back at base, feeds lit up with chatter. Skarn communications were intercepted, fractured with fear and superstition. Mentions of a silent death, a ghost without heat, and steel breath from a void. Panic was setting in, not among the council forces, but the enemy. Juro Keen leaned forward. This is working. "It's just fear," Krell insisted. "Fear doesn't win wars. It cripples them before the first real engagement," said Juro Keen. "And he's doing it alone." Kale relocated within the hour, moving under cover of seismic shadows and electromagnetic blind spots. He didn't use standard council comms. His messages came through a tight band analog pulse, untraceable by Skarn tech. Each report was minimal: coordinates, wind speed, enemy structure. Nothing more. The sniper wasn't interested in sharing thoughts. His role was action. Inside a shielded command tent on the next ridge, a Quarix unit commander approached Juro Keen hesitantly. "Our troops are restless. They believe the human is some kind of executioner. They ask for his blessing before patrols." Juro Keen suppressed the urge to smile. "Let them believe what they want." He's earned it. A day later, the Skarn altered tactics. They no longer clustered. Officers traveled apart, protected by counter-sniper drones and cloaking flares. They began deploying deep burrow ECM units to mask thermal trails and distort audio signatures. It was, in the Council's estimation, a reasonable counter. Kale had already adapted. He studied the new deployments from a height, watching how Skarn drones buzzed in search patterns. Broad, erratic, too predictable. He set passive traps along their expected sweep zones, mirrors to mislead, decoy signatures to lure. He fired no shots that day. But the following morning, 2 of the drones crashed into the same crater, fried by one of his custom electromagnetic spikes. The Skarn commander station in that region was found impaled by his own drone's debris. Kale's kill count rose. Not chaotically, not in clusters, but one at a time, like threads being snipped from a tapestry. He wasn't just removing soldiers. He was unraveling structure. And the Council began to understand. They sent a small alien team to deliver a new directive, additional support, more humans, a full battalion perhaps. Kale met them on the edge of the northern plateau. He refused the offer. "Too many boots," he said quietly. "They'll hear us coming." The alien lieutenant tilted his horned head. "You intend to keep operating alone?" Kale slung his rifle over his shoulder. "That's the point." The team left without further argument. Later that evening, Kale set up atop a skeletal plateau overlooking the Skarn's mobile relay base. Through his scope, he saw them moving erratically, officers shouting, drones flying in panicked loops. Their formation was tight, nervous. He waited until a Skarn commander stepped outside his shield dome to bark orders. One shot. The commander's body crumpled against a support beam. Then Kale fired again, not at a target, but at the solar array. The shot cracked the power conduit, throwing half the outpost into blackness. The chaos that followed could be heard even from his perch. Alarms, confusion, desertion. From the command bunker, Jurokeen watched satellite feeds light up with fleeing thermal signatures. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. One man, one rifle. Krell's voice crackled again, this time quieter. He's forcing a retreat. Jurokeen didn't reply. He simply watched the feed as Kale stood, faded into the storm haze, and disappeared from view. The Skarn weren't just losing soldiers. They were losing the will to fight. The Skarn no longer walked with confidence. Patrols that once moved in rigid, predatory formations now staggered, scanning empty ridgelines, their weapons twitching at shadows. They whispered each other in clicks and hisses, unaware their own transmissions were being triangulated. Somewhere beyond their perception, Orion Kale was listening. By the 4th day, the Skarn command adjusted their approach. Recon squad were replaced with drone phalanxes equipped with thermal scatter fields. They launched sweeping flyovers, laying sonic mines in patterns meant to flush out hidden marksmen. Kale evaded them all. He crawled under their signals, burrowed through their blind zones, and waited. The forward council base was eerily quiet. What chatter remained was reverent. Kale's call sign, Whisper, was being spoken across dozens of frequencies. He had not asked for the name. He simply became it. In a war room dimly lit by flickering maps, General Jurokeen leaned over a table, watching Skarn positions shift like bacteria in a dish. "They're fragmenting," he said. "They've shifted 2 officers per unit," replied a Quark's comms analyst. "Hoping redundancy keeps the squads intact. They think this is about killing leaders," Jurokeen murmured. "They don't understand. This is about fear." He pulled up Kale's last report. 4 numbers, barely a sentence. Wind direction, coordinates, time to next shot. No commentary, no ego. Out in the field, Kale repositioned along the western basin. He hadn't eaten in a day. Hunger was irrelevant. His breath was slow, heart rate shallow. The wind curled across his exposed cheek. He blinked once, then adjusted his sights. Below him, a Skarn detachment clustered near a relay node. They were reinforcing it with portable jammers and relay amplifiers. One of them, a lieutenant with a flared collar, removed his helmet to shout at his engineers. Kale watched the movement of his lips. Barked orders. Irritation. A vulnerability. He exhaled. The shot didn't just hit the officer. It punched through him, cracking the relay casing behind. The power surged, overloading the backup battery. Sparks spilled across the dry surface. Screams followed. Kale didn't stay to admire the chaos. He was already gone, crawling down a dead slope while the Skarn fired wildly at the ridgelines, hitting only stone. They launched retaliation drones within the hour, multi-limb machines with scent-tracking algorithms and UV beam combs. Kale laid a false trail of protein paste and old rations in a nearby cave. When the drones entered, he triggered a compression mine he'd built from scavenged battery cells. The blast was small, precise, enough to destroy without drawing attention. From the safety of the canyon shadows, Kale whispered into his mic, "Drones disabled, western flank exposed." In the command bunker, a Volthree officer blinked rapidly, unable to hide her awe. "That entire route is open now." "Send no one yet," Juro Keen replied. "Let the silence sink in." It did, and in that silence, the Skarn began to unravel further. They started broadcasting propaganda over open channels. Recordings of captured council soldiers pleading, demanding Kale face them directly. They used human voices, distorted and looped. The bait was obvious. Kale didn't respond. Instead, he targeted the transmission source, tracking the hum of its signal to a disguised comms tower. One shot. The antenna snapped. Another. The power relay shorted out. Static replaced the voices. The Skarn responded with fury. They launched beacon flares across 4 ridgelines and swept them with incendiary drones. Hills burned, ash falling like snow. But they never touched Kale. He had moved into the high crags, deep inside a magnetic dead zone. No tech worked there. No drones entered. Just stone, wind, and the sound of distant thunder. It was there he cleaned his weapon, piece by piece, in the dark. The next morning, 2 Skarn were found with clean shots through their visors, killed without warning as they tried to evacuate supplies. They had been alone. No battle. No noise. Just death and silence. Inside the council base, Juro Keen stared at a shifting map of Skarn troop movement. Their units had begun collapsing inward, bunching into tight, mobile formations around command structures. "They're choking themselves," he said. "They've locked down their own mobility," added the analyst. "They're terrified of open space." Krell appeared on the hololink, her face tense. "Your sniper's campaign is effective, but not sustainable." "It doesn't need to be," Juro Keen said. "We only need one more strike. Something decisive." He didn't send that order to Kale. He didn't have to. Out in the eastern basin, Kale spotted movement. A command skiff, flanked by 2 walkers, was moving toward an extraction point. It was heavily shielded, but not perfect. Kale moved across the slope, like smoke, slowly closing the angle. He didn't run. He waited for the sun's angle to align, shadows to mask. He breathed in. 2 walkers. No distractions. He focused on the skiff. His gloved finger rested lightly against the trigger. The skiff's door opened. A tall figure emerged. Skarn war leader Torkelkir, covered in adaptive armor, helmet off, barking orders with wide, confident gestures. Arrogance. Exposure. Kale didn't hesitate. One shot. Torkel's body folded before the words left his mouth. The walkers froze. The guard scrambled, firing into the dust, but the damage was done. The war leader was gone. The signal to retreat came moments later. The Skarn lines cracked. Across the valley, entire platoons abandoned posts. Walkers staggered, drones recalled. The commanders had no orders. Their central voice had vanished with a single bullet. Back in the command bunker, Juro Keen received a silent update, an automated pulse from Kale's transmitter. No words, just a timestamp. The war had changed in that moment, and Kale was already gone. Dust swept across the scorched plateau in slow, sullen waves. The air shimmered with residual heat from orbital bombardments, and black smoke curled from distant craters where Skarn artillery had once stood. The battlefield was silent now, save for the wind and the faint, electric crackle of disabled drones strewn across the ridgelines. But even in this moment of uneasy stillness, Everyone, soldier and commander alike, knew the war was not yet over. High above in a stealth observation perch carved into the side of a basalt cliff, Orion Kale lay prone, his rifle nestled into a custom groove of rock, its matte black barrel poking just far enough to see. His body was still, his breathing shallow. Through his scope, he surveyed the Skarn's final stronghold, a temporary fortress rigged together from wrecked transport haulers and plasma battery husks. Makeshift, yes, but efficient. Its walls pulsed with kinetic shielding, and its perimeter crawled with sensor turrets and spider-legged patrol drones. The Skarn were desperate, but not defeated. A lesser force would have folded after the loss of Torkulkir. The warlord Kale had eliminated days earlier with a single, decisive shot. But Veltakar, the high strategist, had seized control in the aftermath, rallying what remained of the fractured Skarn war machine. Under his brutal leadership, they had retreated here, Varela III's final cliffside bastion, and prepared for one last stand. Their forces had dwindled, but their firepower had not. Kale adjusted the dial on his scope by a fraction. Veltakar was the last thread holding the enemy's command web together. Remove him, and the network collapsed. Kale's internal HUD displayed wind variance, distance, temperature, and barometric pressure. 947 meters. Downhill shot. High altitude interference. Gravity lighter than Earth's, but not enough to make a difference. He breathed in, blinked once. His finger rested gently on the trigger guard, not yet pressing. Below, Veltakar emerged. Even from this distance, Kale could make out the details. Tall and thickly armored in adaptive alloy plates, a long black command cloak sweeping behind him. He barked something in Skarn dialect, gesturing forcefully at his officers. A cadre of guards flanked him. His movement was precise, controlled, too proud to hide. Kale waited for the cloak to lift in the breeze. There, he squeezed. The sound of the shot was lost in the canyon's breath. But through the scope, Kale watched Veltakar's head jerk violently backward, the cloak crumpling beneath his collapsed frame. The guard scrambled. One fired upward in blind panic. Another shouted into a comm it didn't matter. The strategist was dead before he hit the ground. In the following seconds, chaos bloomed. Sirens blared from the compound. Drones activated and swarmed outward in erratic spirals, searching for a ghost that had already disappeared. Soldiers ran to shield walls, then stopped, unsure of what to do next. Kale watched their hesitation and knew. The command structure had snapped. Back at the Council forward base, General Juralkeen stood before a hollow map displaying live battlefield telemetry. His eyes scanned the Skarn positions. They pulsed, shifted, blinked, and then, like falling stars, began to vanish. "They're abandoning the stronghold," said a Volthree Signals officer. "Evac transports just launched from the eastern ridge. We're picking up panic frequencies." "No new orders," said another. "They don't know what to do." Juralkeen crossed his arms, eyes still fixed on the blinking retreat signals. "They've gone blind." He opened a secure channel. Earth's diplomatic seal flickered on screen. "Tell your command," he said. "The human sniper didn't just end a battle. He ended the war." Across Council worlds, news traveled fast. Veltakar's death spread from encrypted military dispatches to civilian news feeds. Footage from thermal satellites, edited and dramatized, showed only the flash of a single shot and the collapse of the last Skarn commander. The phrase, Whisper's bullet, trended across a dozen systems. On Citadel Prime, in the polished halls of Council governance, Earth's representatives walked differently now. No longer ignored. No longer underestimated. The Selniks, who once mocked Earth's clumsy kinetics, now requested joint training exercises. The Quartz petitioned for an Earth marksman liaison program. Even Krell, the sharp-tongued skeptic of the Council's elite, offered a rare public statement. Precision, it seems, is not always visible until it strikes. Meanwhile, Kale did not return to celebration. He remained in the field for 2 more days, clearing the battlefield of remaining Skarn drones, disarming plasma traps, and tagging unmarked craters for recovery crews. He found a Council medic's body in a crater, burned long dead. He gathered the remains and buried them beneath stones. No one saw it. There was no ceremony. He placed the soldier's broken insignia at the top of the cairn and moved on. When the extraction signal finally came, Kale stood atop a wind-swept ridge, his cloak flapping behind him. A Corex dropship descended in silence. The pilot didn't speak. No one inside the transport made a sound as Kale entered, dust falling from his armor with each step. He sat near the back, his rifle across his lap, visor lowered. The dropship ascended into the thinning atmosphere. Below, the last of the Skarn stronghold smoldered quietly. No resistance, no pursuit, only stillness. Inside Council Command, analysts tried to quantify Kale's effect. 17 confirmed officer kills, dozens of psychological collapses in enemy ranks, the destruction of morale infrastructure across 5 regiments, entire enemy battalions retreating without ever firing a shot, no planetary-level bombardments, no army movements, just one man, one rifle, and a refusal to miss. He was offered medals. He declined. He was offered a permanent seat on the Council's Joint Tactical Command. He refused. He was offered rest and reward. Instead, he requested cryosleep. Until when Juril Keen had asked him personally, the day before he entered stasis again. Kale's answer was quiet. Until they forget. Inside the cryo chamber, he lay still, arms folded over his chest, breathing slowed to a whisper. The world outside froze in silence as the seals hissed and the blue frost bloomed across the chamber walls. Generations would pass. Others would rise, forget, and grow proud. And when they laughed at Earth again, when they dismissed the species that spoke in analog and walked with graceless feet, they would remember too late, because humans didn't need to speak loudly. They only needed to aim.